I always believed grief was supposed to be quiet, a heavy curtain drawn across a life, but my sister Camille made it loud. When I returned to Briar Glen after my father's stroke, the house smelled of stale coffee and impending war. At the funeral, Camille pressed a damp cheek against mine and whispered, "Don't touch anything in the house, Leah." I thought it was protection. I didn't realize she had already begun counting the spoons. The drive back to Briar Glen, Massachusetts, felt like driving backward in time. The highway stretched out in a gray ribbon under a sky that looked like a bruised peach, heavy with unshed rain. I was 33 years old, living a structured, manageable life in Boston. But as the miles ticked away, I felt the old weight of this town settling on my chest. My father, Harold Reed, was dead. The stroke had been massive and unforgiving. By the time I arrived at the hospital, the machines were already doing the breathing for him, and the doctor's voice was a low hum of inevitability. I held his hand until the warmth left it, numb in a way that felt like shock but was probably just self-preservation. I did not cry. I organized. I signed forms. I called the funeral home. I did what I had always done in the Reed family. I managed the reality while everyone else managed the perception. When I pulled into the driveway of the house I grew up in, the silence was deafening. The lawn was overgrown, just slightly, the way grass gets when the person who tended it suddenly stops existing. I killed the engine and sat there, staring at the front porch. Camille's car was already there. My sister Camille was 5 years older than me, in our childhood. That gap had been a canyon. In adulthood, it was a demilitarized zone. We spoke on holidays and birthdays, polite conversations that skated over the surface of deep, frozen resentment. I got out of the car, grabbing my overnight bag. The front door opened before I reached the steps. Camille stood there, framed by the hallway light. She was wearing black, a dress that fit perfectly, as if she had been keeping it in reserve for this exact moment. Her face was scrubbed of makeup, but her hair was immaculate. "Leah," she said. Her voice was thick, trembling with a performance of sorrow that made my teeth ache. "Hi, Camille," I said. I walked up the steps, expecting a nod or a brief squeeze of the hand. Instead, she threw her arms around me, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a capture than an embrace. She smelled of expensive vanilla perfume and stale cigarette smoke. "I can't believe he's gone," she sobbed against my shoulder. "I just can't believe it." I patted her back, my hand stiff, I know. She pulled back, wiping her eyes with a tissue she had ready in her hand. "I have been here all morning," she said, her voice dropping to a martyr's whisper. "I had to clean out the fridge. The milk was spoiled. It was awful. Leah. Just awful. He was living like this. He died on a Tuesday." "Camille," I said, stepping past her into the house. "The milk probably went bad on Wednesday." She followed me, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood. "You always have an answer, don't you?" "I am just saying, it is a lot for me to handle alone." I stopped at the foot of the stairs and turned to look at her. "You aren't handling it alone. I am here now." Camille looked at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. The grief mask slipped, just for a second, revealing the calculation underneath. "Right," she said. "You are here now, finally." The funeral was 2 days later. The church was half full, mostly men my father had worked with at the plant 30 years ago, and women from the neighborhood who treated funerals like social mixers. I sat in the front pew, staring at the polished wood of the casket, trying to find the feeling of loss I knew should be there. It felt blocked, dammed up behind a wall of logistics. Camille, however, was weeping enough for both of us. She stood at the lectern to deliver the eulogy, clutching a sheaf of papers. My father was a complicated man. She began, her voice breaking beautifully. But he loved us. He loved this town, and in his final years, when things were hard, when he was lonely, I tried to be his rock. I gave up so much to be near him. I stared at my hands. Camille lived 40 minutes away. She visited on Christmas, and maybe Easter, when Dad had his hip replacement 2 years ago. I was the one who drove down from Boston every weekend to fill his pill organizers and mow the lawn. Camille had sent a fruit basket. After the service, we stood in the reception hall, drinking lukewarm coffee. People lined up to offer condolences. Camille held court near the door, hugging strangers, nodding tragically as she accepted their pity. She was building a narrative, brick by brick. The devoted daughter, the one who stayed, the one who suffered. I moved toward the buffet table, needing to be away from her voice, but she found me 10 minutes later. She came up close, leaning in as if to share a sisterly confidence. "Leah," she said. I looked at her. "Yeah? I know you are planning to stay at the house for a few days to sort through things," she said. Her voice was low, barely a whisper. "I have to," I said. "There is paperwork. The bills need to be paid. We have to figure out the probate process." Camille's hand shot out and gripped my forearm. Her nails dug in through my sweater. "Don't touch anything in the house," she hissed. I pulled my arm back, startled. "What?" "You heard me," she said, her eyes hard and dry. "Don't go digging through his things. Don't start throwing things away. That is not your job. I am his daughter, too." "Camille," I said, keeping my voice level despite the spike of adrenaline in my gut. "And somebody has to organize the estate." "Just wait," she said. "Just wait until the lawyers talk. Do not touch anything." She turned and walked away, instantly melting into a sobbing embrace with Mrs. Gable from the choir. I stood there, cold coffee in my hand, feeling the first true chill of the coming winter. The next morning, I sat at my father's kitchen table with a mug of tea and a single sheet of paper. It was a letter Dad had shown me 6 months ago during one of my visits. It wasn't a formal will that was filed at the courthouse, presumably, but it was a letter of instruction. "Leah," it read in his shaky block printing, "you are the one with the head for numbers. When I go, I want you to be the executor. Keep it simple. Split everything down the middle with your sister. Do not let the lawyers eat up the savings. Love, Dad." I had assumed this would be easy. Routine. Dad didn't have a fortune. He had the house, a checking account, a savings account with maybe $50,000, and his pension. Simple. I was reaching for my phone to call the local probate court clerk when a car pulled into the driveway. It wasn't a friend, it was a courier. I signed for the large manila envelope, my heart doing a slow, heavy thud against my ribs. I tore it open, standing in the doorway. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Probate and Family Court. Emergency petition for appointment of special administrator and temporary restraining order. Petitioner, Camille Reed. I scanned the legalese, my breath catching in my throat. Phrases jumped out at me like slaps to the face. Undue influence, risk of dissipation of assets, estrangement. Camille wasn't just asking to be the executor. She was asking the court to freeze everything immediately. She was claiming that I, Leah Reed, was a threat to the estate. I drove to the law offices of Wilcox and Marin LLP. An hour later, I had found them online. They were the most reputable firm in the county, and I needed someone who wasn't one of Dad's old drinking buddies. Dana Wilcox was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob and glasses that looked like they cost more than my car. She sat behind a desk that seemed to be made of a single slab of mahogany. She read the documents I had brought, her face impassive. "So," Dana said, looking up over her glasses, "your sister works fast. I don't understand," I said, sitting on the edge of the leather chair. "We haven't even read the will yet. Why is she doing this?" Dana tapped the paper with a manicured fingernail. "She is alleging that your father lacked capacity when he appointed you executor, assuming there is a will that names you. She is claiming you manipulated him." "Me?" I laughed. A harsh, jagged sound. "I live in Boston. I saw him twice a month. She is the one who claims she was always here." "That is exactly her argument," Dana said calmly. "She is saying that because you were distant, your sudden involvement in his finances toward the end suggests undue influence. She is saying you took advantage of his isolation to position yourself to take the money. That is insane." I said, "There is no money, just the house and some savings." Dana flipped to the third page of the petition. It is not just the house. Leah, look at this. She spun the document around. I looked at the paragraph she was pointing to. Petitioner demands a full accounting and immediate turnover of all possessions currently under Leah Reed's control, to be held in trust pending the outcome of litigation. This includes, but is not limited to, jewelry, vehicles, and electronics which constitute commingled property obtained through emotional manipulation. I stared at the words. Vehicles. Electronics? She wants my car? I asked, my voice rising. She wants my laptop? If she can prove your father paid for them, or that you used his money to buy them. Yes, Dana said. She is casting a very wide net. She is trying to strip you of resources so you can't fight back. This isn't a probate case. Leah, this is a scorched earth campaign. I sat back, the leather creaking. I thought about the funeral, Camille's performance, the way she had warned me not to touch anything. She knew. She had already filed this before the dirt hit the casket. What do we do? I asked. We fight, Dana said. But you need to understand something. This is going to get ugly. She's going to drag up every family grievance, every missed birthday, every loan you ever took. She is rewriting history, and in probate court, the person with the most detailed story often wins, regardless of the truth. I left the office feeling like I was walking underwater. I called Evan from the car. Evan was my boyfriend of 3 years. He was an architect, a man who liked clean lines and problems that could be solved with a drafting pencil. He hated conflict. She sued you? Evan asked, his voice tinny over the car's Bluetooth. Like, actually sued you? She filed a petition to freeze everything, I said, gripping the steering wheel. She is claiming I manipulated Dad. She wants my car. Evan, she says it is commingled property because Dad helped me with the down payment 6 years ago. That is ridiculous, Evan said. I know it is ridiculous, but I have to hire a lawyer. It is going to cost thousands of dollars just to respond. There was a pause on the line. Leah, maybe you should just settle. I nearly swerved into the other lane. What? I mean, is it worth it? Evan asked. The house is old. The market in Briar Glen isn't great. If you fight this, you will spend everything your dad left just paying the lawyers. Maybe you just let her have the executor role, take your half, and come home. It is not about the money, I said, my voice tight. She is lying. Evan, she is saying I abused my father's trust. If I settle, I am admitting she is right. It is just paper. Leah, it is just court stuff. It doesn't mean it is true. It matters to me. I said, okay, he said, backing down. I just don't want to see you get hurt. You sound intense. I am intense, I snapped. My father just died and my sister is trying to cannibalize his life. I hung up before I said something I would regret. Evan meant well, but he lived in a world where people were reasonable. He didn't understand the Reeds. He didn't understand that for Camille, this wasn't about assets. It was about winning. It was about proving that she was the beloved one, even if she had to burn the house down to do it. I drove back to my father's house. The sun was setting, casting long skeletal shadows across the lawn. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the gloom. I needed to find the financial records. Dana had told me to gather everything: bank statements, tax returns, the deed to the house. I went into the study, a small room off the living room where Dad kept his life in a metal filing cabinet. I pulled open the top drawer. It was empty. I stared at the gray metal bottom. No hanging folders, no papers, just a few paper clips scattered in the corner. I yanked open the second drawer. Empty. The third. Empty. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. I spun around and looked at the desk. The drawers were closed, but when I opened them, they were a mess. Pens and rubber bands were scattered, but the checkbooks were gone. The address book was gone. I went to the closet where Dad kept his old fireproof safe. It was a heavy, ancient thing with a dial combination. I knelt down in front of it. The dial was intact, but the metal around the door was scratched, deeply gouged. Bright silver streaks marred the dark gray paint. Someone had taken a screwdriver or a pry bar to it. They hadn't gotten in. The safe was still locked. But the violence of the attempt made me nauseous. Camille. She had warned me not to touch anything because she had already been here. She had sanitized the house. She had taken the evidence. I stood up, my knees shaking. I needed air. I walked out the back door onto the porch. The air was crisp and smelled of wood smoke. Leah? I jumped. Mrs. Ormond, the neighbor to the left, was standing by the hedge that separated our yards. She was wearing a thick knitted cardigan, holding a cat that looked like a tangled ball of yarn. "Oh, Mrs. Ormond," I said, trying to steady my voice. "You startled me." "I am so sorry." "Dear," she said, "I just saw the light on. How are you holding up?" "I am managing." I said, "It is a shame," she said, shaking her head. He was a good man, quiet, kept to himself mostly. I nodded. Yes, he did. I was surprised to see Camille here so much recently. Mrs. Ormond said. I froze. "Camille? When?" "Oh, a couple of weeks ago," Mrs. Ormond said casually, scratching the cat behind the ears. "I saw her car in the driveway. Late. Must have been midnight or so. I was up getting water and I saw the headlights." 2 weeks ago?" I asked. "Are you sure?" "Oh, yes," she said. "It was the night of the big thunderstorm. I remember thinking it was nice that she was checking on him in that weather. 2 weeks ago. My father had been in the hospital for observation after a minor fall. He hadn't been home. Camille had told me she hadn't visited in 3 months because she was busy with work. She wasn't visiting him, I said quietly. She was visiting the house. She was looting the house while he was in a hospital bed. I went back inside and locked the door. I checked it twice. Then I went to the kitchen and saw the blinking light on the landline answering machine. I hadn't checked it since I arrived. I had been using my cell. I pressed play. Beep. First message. "Hello, Mr. Reed. This is Sarah from First National Bank, calling regarding the change request you submitted on the 14th. We just need you to come in and sign the final affidavit to finalize the transfer. Please call us back at your earliest convenience." The message was dated 4 days before he died. I stared at the machine. A change request? Dad hadn't mentioned moving money. Dad barely knew how to use an ATM. I called the number back immediately. Even though I knew the bank was closed, I navigated the automated menu until I got a voicemail box for the branch manager. "My name is Leah Reed," I said into the phone, my voice trembling. "I am Harold Reed's daughter. He passed away this week. I am the executor named in his will. I need to know what change request was submitted on the 14th. It is urgent. Please call me back." I hung up and sank onto the kitchen floor. The linoleum was cold against my legs. Camille had been here. She had emptied the files. She had tried to break into the safe. And someone, maybe Dad, maybe someone pretending to be Dad, had tried to move money days before the stroke. This wasn't just a dispute. This was a heist. The date of the first court conference arrived with a slate-gray sky and a biting wind. I met Dana outside the courthouse. She looked battle-ready in a navy suit, carrying a leather briefcase that looked heavy enough to be a weapon. "Ready?" she asked. "No," I said. "It doesn't matter," she said. "Just let me do the talking. Keep your face neutral. Do not react to anything she says. If you roll your eyes, the judge sees it. If you sigh, the judge hears it. Be a statue." We walked through the security checkpoint and into the courtroom. It was smaller than I expected, smelling of floor wax and anxiety. Camille was already there. She was sitting at the petitioner's table next to a man I assumed was her lawyer. He was tall, with slicked back hair and a suit that was a shade too shiny. Grant Pellman. I knew the name. He was known in the county for being aggressive and expensive. Camille looked perfect. She was wearing a modest gray dress, a single strand of pearls, and her hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant bun. She looked like the grieving daughter of a statesman. She didn't look at me. She stared straight ahead at the judge's bench, her hands folded demurely in her lap. The judge entered, a tired-looking man named Judge Holloway. We all stood. "Estate of Harold Reed," the clerk announced. Grant Pellman stood up. He buttoned his jacket with a flourish. "Your Honor, We are here on an emergency basis because my client, Camille Reed, has grave concerns about the integrity of the estate assets. We have reason to believe that the respondent, Leah Reed, has already begun dissipating property. Objection, Dana said smoothly. Remaining seated, there is no evidence of dissipation. Ms. Reed has merely secured the home. Mr. Pellman ignored her. Your Honor, the respondent has a history of financial instability. She has commingled funds with the decedent in the past. We are simply asking for a freeze to protect the legacy that Mr. Reed built. My client is the eldest daughter. She was the primary caregiver. She is the one who was there. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks. Primary caregiver? She hadn't been to a doctor's appointment in 5 years. And, Pellman continued, his voice dropping to a theatrical gravity, we are requesting that the respondent be ordered to turn over all possessions currently in her custody that were purchased with the decedent's funds. We believe she is in possession of a vehicle and electronic equipment that belong to the estate. I looked at Camille. She finally turned her head and met my gaze. There was no sadness in her eyes. There was no grief. There was a cold, glittering satisfaction. She looked at me like I was a bug she had just successfully pinned to a board. Judge Holloway looked over his spectacles at me. Ms. Wilcox, does your client object to a temporary restraining order on the assets? We do, Your Honor. Dana said, it is unnecessary and obstructs the administration of the estate. I will grant the freeze on the bank accounts, the judge said, banging his gavel lightly. And I want a full inventory of the personal property filed within 30 days. Both parties are to refrain from removing any items from the residence. Thank you, Your Honor, Pellman said. As we packed up our papers, Camille leaned over to her lawyer and whispered something. He laughed, a short, sharp bark. I watched them. I realized then that Evan was wrong. This wasn't something that could be settled. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Camille had been planning this for months, maybe years. She had rewritten our entire childhood, painted me as the villain, and sold the story to the highest bidder. I wasn't just fighting for the house. I was fighting to keep my own reality from being erased. Camille stood up and smoothed her dress. She walked past me on her way out of the courtroom. She didn't stop, but she slowed down just enough for me to hear her. I told you not to touch anything. Leah. I watched her walk out the double doors, the heels clicking a rhythm of absolute confidence. I turned to Dana. She emptied the file cabinet. I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. What? Dana asked, looking up from her briefcase. She emptied the file cabinet. Before he died. She has the records. Dana stopped. She looked at the door where Camille had just exited, then back at me. Her expression shifted from professional detachment to something sharper. A hunter catching a scent. Are you sure? Dana asked. I am sure. And she tried to break into the safe. Dana snapped her briefcase shut. Okay, she said. Then we are not just responding anymore. We are going digging. She looked at me, her eyes hard behind the expensive glasses. If she took those records, Leah, she made a mistake, because now we know she has something to hide. I looked at the empty courtroom. The numb fog of grief was finally lifting, burned away by a cold, clear anger. Let's find it, I said. We walked out into the gray afternoon. The fight had started, and I knew, with a sinking certainty, that by the time we were done, there wouldn't be a family left to save. The conference room at Wilcox and Marin smelled of lemon polish and old paper. It was a smell I was quickly associating with panic. Dana Wilcox sat across from me, a stack of files between us that seemed to grow vertically every time I blinked. We were filing our response to Camille's petition, and every sentence we drafted felt like digging a trench in frozen ground. We deny everything, Dana said, her pen hovering over a draft. We deny undue influence. We deny lack of capacity. We deny the dissipation of assets. And we are filing a cross motion for expedited discovery. I want her bank records. Leah, I want her emails. If she is claiming you manipulated him, I want to see every time she communicated with him in the last 2 years. I nodded, staring at the polished mahogany table. It felt aggressive. It felt necessary. I want his medical records too. I said. Camille keeps saying his mind was going. She told the judge he was confused. I spoke to him 3 days before the stroke. Dana. He was asking me about the Red Sox bullpen. He wasn't confused. Dana made a note. We will get them. HIPAA release is part of your executor powers. Even if she is challenging them, we will subpoena Dr. Aris. The door opened and an assistant placed a new document on the table. It was fresh from the courier, still cold from the outside air. Grant Pellman's reply brief. Dana said, her voice flat. She didn't reach for it immediately. She looked at me, her expression softening just enough to be terrifying. You need to be prepared. Leah, legal filings are public records. Pellman is writing a story for the judge, but he knows you are going to read it. He's going to try to hurt you. He wants to make you angry so you make a mistake. Read it, I said. Dana picked up the document and adjusted her glasses. She scanned the first page, her jaw tightening. Read it aloud, I said. Dana sighed. She is painting a picture of the prodigal daughter. Leah. Listen to this. The respondent, Leah Reed, abandoned the family home 6 years ago to pursue personal ambitions in Boston, leaving the petitioner, Camille Reed, to shoulder the burden of the decedent's declining years. The respondent returned only when financial matters became pressing, exhibiting a sudden and suspicious interest in the decedent's estate planning. I felt a cold flush creeping up my neck. Abandoned? I moved for a job. I was 27. Dana continued reading, her voice devoid of emotion. The respondent has a history of instability and has frequently relied on the decedent for financial bailouts. Her behavior since the funeral, including changing locks and refusing family access, is consistent with someone attempting to conceal the extent of her manipulation. Instability. I repeated. The word tasted like copper. She is referring to the loan, Dana said gently. The car down payment? He gave me $3,000. I said, 6 years ago. I paid him back in 6 months. I have the canceled checks. Find them, Dana said. We need to attach them as exhibits. I sat back, feeling the room spin slightly. It wasn't just the lies. It was the specific flavor of them. This was Camille's masterpiece. She had taken the truth. I moved away. Dad helped me once, and twisted it until it looked like a crime. I left the office an hour later, the legal brief tucked into my bag like a radioactive isotope. I drove to the edge of town, to a coffee shop I used to go to in high school, but I didn't go in. I just sat in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel. I spiraled. It was a physical sensation, a tightening in my chest that pulled me down into the past. This was what Camille did. She didn't scream. She didn't throw things. She just rewrote the script until you started questioning your own sanity. I remembered when I was 16, and I had saved up $500 from babysitting to buy a camera. The money went missing from my drawer. When I accused Camille, she hadn't gotten angry. She had looked at me with pity. Leah, you lost it. She had said, you are always so careless. Remember when you lost your coat? You probably dropped the money at the mall. By the end of the week, I believed her. I apologized to her for accusing her. 2 months later, she came home with a new leather jacket. She was doing it again. Unstable. Abandonment. She was counting on the fact that I felt guilty for moving away. She was weaponizing my own normal life choices against me. I started the car. I wasn't 16 anymore. I wasn't going to apologize for losing money I hadn't lost. I drove straight to Dr. Aris's office. Dr. Aris had been our family physician since I was in elementary school. He was a small, round man with hands that always smelled of antiseptic soap and peppermint. His office hadn't changed in 2 decades. The same watercolor paintings of sailboats hung on the walls, fading a little more each year. The receptionist knew me. She squeezed my hand when I walked in, offering condolences that felt genuine. Unlike the performative grief of the funeral, I showed her my executor paperwork. I know Camille is challenging this, I said, keeping my voice low. But right now, the court hasn't revoked my authority. I need to see his records, specifically, the notes from his last few visits. Dr. Aris came out 10 minutes later. He looked tired. He ushered me into his private office and closed the door. "Leah," he said, sitting heavily in his chair, "I heard about the court case. It is a tragedy. Harold would have hated this. He was competent, wasn't he?" I asked. I didn't waste time with small talk. "Camille says he had dementia. She says he didn't know what he was doing. Dr. Aris took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Harold had hypertension. He had high cholesterol. He had the aches and pains of a man of 72. But his mind? His mind was sharp as a tack. Can you put that in writing?" I asked. "I already have," he said. He tapped a file on his desk. "I reviewed his charts after I got the subpoena from your sister's lawyer." He pushed the file toward me. I opened it. The medical shorthand was dense, but Dr. Aris pointed to a section typed in the notes from a visit 3 weeks before the stroke. "Patient presents with elevated blood pressure, 160/95. Patient denies dietary changes. Patient reports significant stress due to ongoing family conflict regarding finances." I stared at the words. Family conflict. Did he say who? I asked. Looking up, did he say who was causing the stress? Dr. Aris hesitated. He didn't name names in the medical record. "Leah, doctors try to keep the subjective stuff out. But we talked. He was my patient for 30 years. What did he say?" "He said he was being pressured." Dr. Aris said quietly. "He said he was being asked to sign things he didn't want to sign. He said he was tired of the demands." "Demands from whom?" Dr. Aris looked me in the eye. He said, "She won't take no for an answer." "He didn't say your name, Leah, and considering you were in Boston..." He let the sentence hang in the air. It was Camille. She had been hounding him, and it had stressed him out enough to spike his blood pressure 3 weeks before he died. "I need a copy of this." I said, "Take it." Dr. Aris said, "And Leah, be careful. A man doesn't get that stressed over a few $1,000s. Whatever she was asking for, it was big." I walked out of the medical center with the file clutched to my chest. My phone buzzed. It was Dana. "Come back to the office," she said. Her voice was tight. "Now?" I asked. "I just got the medical records." "Now," she said. "I found something in our own archives." When I got back to Wilcox and Marin, Dana was standing by the window, looking out at the parking lot. She turned when I entered, holding a thin manila folder. "I ran a conflict check on your father's name again," she said, "just to be thorough. I wanted to make sure none of our junior associates had ever consulted for Camille. And I found a hit," she said, "but not for Camille, for Harold." I frowned. "I know. He hired you to write the letter naming me executor." "No," Dana said. "That was a year ago. This record is from 6 months ago." She opened the folder. It was a single intake form, filled out in handwriting that wasn't my father's, likely a receptionist's. Client, Harold Reed. Consultation type, estate planning revisions. Notes. Client inquired about shielding assets from potential litigation. Client canceled follow-up appointment. "He came here?" I asked. 6 months ago? "He met with my partner, Mr. Marin, for 20 minutes. Dana said. "He didn't retain us formally for a new will. He just asked questions." "What kind of questions?" Dana looked at the notes. "He asked if a parent can be held liable for a child's debts if they didn't co-sign, and he asked how to document a gift so that it counts as a loan repayment." My stomach dropped. "A child's debts. Camille," I whispered. "It contradicts her entire story," Dana said, pacing the room. "She claims no one was involved in his finances except family. She claims he was an open book, but he was sneaking in here, asking lawyers how to protect himself from debt liability. Why didn't he tell me?" I asked. "Because he was ashamed," Dana said, "or because he was scared." She handed me the intake form. "This is good for us." "Leah," she said, "it shows he was thinking critically. It shows he was worried about money 6 months ago, long before the stroke. It proves capacity. It proves he was in trouble." I said. I drove home, to Dad's home, feeling the weight of the mystery pressing down on me. The house was dark when I arrived. I let myself in, locking the door behind me. I turned on the hallway light and saw the dust motes dancing in the air. My phone rang. It was Evan. "Hey," I said, kicking off my shoes. "I am really tired. Evan, it has been a day." "Leah, wait," he said. His voice sounded strained. "I need to tell you something before you hear it from someone else." My hand froze on the light switch. "What is it?" "Camille called me," he said. I stood very still. "When?" "This morning. She looked me up at the firm. She called my work line." I felt a cold spike of betrayal. "Why were you talking to her?" "Evan? She just wanted to talk." "Leah." She sounded reasonable. "She said she's worried about you. She said this court case is destroying the family and eating up all the money. She sued me." "Evan, I know. But she made an offer. She said if you sign over the house and the executor rights, she will drop the lawsuit. She will let you keep the car and your personal stuff. She won't come after you for the commingled funds. She just wants peace." "Leah." I closed my eyes. "Peace. She wants the house." I said, "That is not peace. That is robbery." "She said the house is underwater anyway." Evan said, "She said there are liens on it. She is trying to protect you from the debt." "Liens?" "Dad didn't have a mortgage. The house was paid off 15 years ago. That is just what she said." Evan pressed, "Look, Leah, I don't want to be in the middle of this, but maybe you should listen to her. Is this fight worth it? You are turning into a different person. You are so angry all the time. She is manipulating you." "Evan," I said, my voice trembling, "can't you see that? She called you because she knows you are the weak link. She knows you will pressure me to quit." "I am not the weak link," Evan snapped. "I am the only one looking at this rationally." I didn't say anything. I realized, with a sudden, sharp clarity, that I couldn't trust him. He wasn't malicious, but he was soft. Camille would chew him up and spit him out, and he would thank her for the experience. "I have to go," I said. "Leah, don't." I hung up. I put the phone on the kitchen counter and stared at it. I felt a crack forming in the foundation of my life in Boston. Evan was part of the before. He didn't belong in the now. I needed to do something physical. I needed to work. I grabbed a notepad and a pen. Inventory, the judge had said. 30 days. I started in the living room. I listed the television, the sofa, the antique lamp that Mom had loved. I moved to the dining room, the china cabinet. I stopped. The china cabinet was filled with Mom's old Noritake set, the one we only used on Thanksgiving, but on the top shelf, there was a gap in the dust. Mom had a Ladro figurine collection, ballerinas. There had been 5 of them. There were 2 left. I opened the glass door. The velvet lining where the others had stood was clean, darker than the faded fabric around it. They had been moved recently. I went upstairs to Dad's bedroom. I opened the top drawer of his dresser. Dad had a vintage Omega watch. He bought it in 1978. He wore it every Sunday. The box was there. I opened it. Empty. I checked the back of the drawer. I checked the other drawers. Gone. I went to the closet. Mom's pearl necklace, the one she had worn at my graduation. Dad kept it in a small velvet pouch on the top shelf. Gone. And the lockbox, the small gray fireproof box where he kept birth certificates and the deed. Gone. I sat on the edge of the bed. Camille had stood in court today and demanded a full inventory. She had accused me of hiding assets, and all the while, she had the watch, the pearls, and the documents sitting in her house, probably 40 minutes away. She had looted the place. If I listed these items as missing, she would claim I took them. If I didn't list them, I was helping her hide the theft. It was a trap. My phone buzzed again. I looked at it warily, expecting Evan again. It was a text from an unknown number. "Leah, this is Talia Vance. I was your father's assistant at the plant before he retired. Please don't tell anyone I contacted you. I need to tell you about the affidavit." I stared at the screen. Talia Vance. I remembered her. She was a kind, efficient woman who used to send me birthday cards from the office when I was a kid. I called the number immediately. She picked up on the first ring. "Hello? Talia. It's Leah. I just got your text. What affidavit?" "Oh, honey," Talia said. Her voice sounded shaky. I debated calling you, but when I saw the news about the court case in the local paper, I couldn't sleep. What happened? Your sister, Talia said. She called me a month ago, before your father passed. Before? Yes. She wanted me to write a statement saying that your father had promised her the house years ago. She sent me a draft. Leah, it was all written out. She just wanted me to sign it and notarize it. What did you do? I asked, gripping the phone. I told her I couldn't do that, Talia said. I told her I never heard Harold say any such thing. In fact, Harold always said he wanted things split even. What did she say? She got nasty, Talia said. She told me that I was confused. She said that if I didn't sign it, I might find myself involved in a lawsuit. She scared me. Leah, did you keep the draft? I asked. The one she sent you? Yes, Talia said. I printed it out. I have the email too. Don't delete it, I said. Please, Talia, that is proof. I won't, she said, but I don't want to get in trouble. You won't. I promised. You are saving me. I hung up, my heart racing. Attempted subornation of perjury, that was the legal term. Camille was manufacturing evidence. I went back downstairs to the kitchen. I needed to look at the papers again. I had requested a partial transaction history from the bank before the freeze went into effect. Just a snapshot of the last 90 days. It had arrived in the mail yesterday, but I hadn't looked closely at it yet. I spread the statement out on the table under the harsh overhead light. November 1st, grocery store, $54. November 3rd, gas station, $40. November 5th, pharmacy, $22. Normal, mundane. Then I saw it. October 12th, electronic transfer, Northwick Mediation Services, $2,500. I frowned. September 12th, electronic transfer, Northwick Mediation Services, $2,500. August 12th, electronic transfer, Northwick Mediation Services, $2,500. I scanned back. It was a recurring monthly payment, $2,500. That was half his pension. Who was Northwick Mediation Services? It wasn't a doctor. It wasn't a utility company. It sounded like a law firm or a debt collector. Dad didn't have debt. The house was paid for. His car was 10 years old. I pulled out my laptop and typed Northwick Mediation Services into the search bar. The website was a single page, a generic stock photo of a handshake, a phone number, an address in a strip mall in a town 3 towns over, services, dispute resolution, debt settlement, private arbitration, dispute resolution. I looked at the dates again. The payments had started 6 months ago, right around the time Dad went to see Dana's partner at the law firm, right around the time he asked about liability for a child's debts. He was paying someone off, or he was paying someone else's debt. I grabbed my coat. I didn't know what time it was. Past 9, probably, but I couldn't sit in this house with the ghosts of missing heirlooms and the evidence of extortion. I called Dana. She picked up on the 3rd ring. I found money. I said, good money or bad money? Dana asked. Bad. I said, missing money. He was paying $2,500 a month to a place called Northwick Mediation. Never heard of them, Dana said. Neither have I. But the payment started 6 months ago. Dana, that is $15,000 gone in half a year. Leah, Dana said, her voice serious. If there are unexplained transfers, Camille is going to use that. She will say you took it. How could I take it? It is a transfer to a mediation firm. She will say you set up a shell company. She will say you coerced him into paying your debts. This looks messy. So what do? We have to find out who Northwick is, Dana said, and we have to do it fast, because I got a call from the court clerk this afternoon. What? Judge Holloway is losing patience, Dana said. Pellman filed another motion today complaining that we haven't turned over the inventory yet. The judge is talking about appointing a special personal representative. A what? A neutral administrator? Dana explained. A lawyer appointed by the court to take over everything. They will secure the house, freeze all accounts, and lock both of you out. If that happens, Leah, you lose control. You can't search for records. You can't enter the house without permission. The estate gets drained by professional fees, and we lose our ability to investigate. How long do I have? I asked. The next hearing is in 10 days. Dana said, if we don't have a smoking gun by then, something that proves Camille is lying and that you are the responsible party, the judge is going to take the keys away. 10 days. I looked at the bank statement. I looked at the empty spot in the china cabinet. I will find it, I said. I hung up. I stood in the center of the kitchen, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. The house felt huge and empty, stripped of its treasures and its secrets. Camille thought she had won. She thought she had scrubbed the scene. But she had missed the bank statement. She had missed Talia Vance, and she had underestimated me. I wasn't the little sister who lost her lunch money anymore. I was the executor, and I was going to turn this house upside down until it gave up its dead. I looked at the address for Northwick Mediation Services on my screen. Tomorrow, I thought, tomorrow, we go hunting. The address for Northwick Mediation Services led me to a strip mall in a town called Revere, 40 minutes south of Briar Glen. It was the kind of place that seemed to exist in a permanent state of gray dampness. The parking lot was cracked, weeds shooting up through the asphalt like stubborn fingers. I parked my car between a dry cleaner with a faded sign and a liquor store that advertised lottery tickets in neon orange. I sat in the car for a moment, the engine ticking as it cooled. I held the printout of the bank transfer in my hand. Northwick Mediation Services. It sounded official. It sounded like a place where gentlemen in suits discussed settlements over mahogany tables. The reality was a glass door smeared with grit, sandwiched between the dry cleaner and a payday loan outlet. The stenciled letters on the glass listed 3 businesses sharing the suite: Northwick Mediation, Apex Debt Resolution, and Quick Fix Credit Repair. I got out of the car, pulling my coat tighter against the wind. I pushed open the door. A bell jingled. A cheap, tinny sound. The waiting room was the size of a closet, smelling of stale toner and burnt coffee. A woman sat behind a high counter, typing furiously on a keyboard that looked 10 years old. "Can I help you?" she asked, not looking up. "I'm looking for Northwick Mediation," I said. She pointed a thumb toward a closed door on the left without breaking her typing rhythm. "Mr. Sater is in a meeting. Do you have an appointment?" "I don't," I said. "I am the executor of an estate that has been making payments to this firm. I need to verify what the payments are for." The typing stopped. She looked up. Her eyes were tired, rimmed with heavy eyeliner. "Name on the account?" she asked. "Harold Reed," I said. She clicked her mouse a few times, staring at the screen. Then she frowned. "We don't have a client named Harold Reed," she said. I pulled the bank statement from my bag and slid it across the counter. "He has been transferring $2,500 here every month for 6 months. I said, "The last one was in October." She squinted at the paper. She typed something else. Then she made a small sound of recognition. "Oh," she said, "he isn't the client. He is the payer. The account is under a different name." "Whose name?" I asked, my heart hammering. "I can't give you that information," she said, sliding the paper back. "Privacy policy. I am the executor." I repeated. "I have the court authority to inquire about his expenditures. That gives you authority over his accounts," she said, her voice practicing a speech she had clearly given 100 times. "It doesn't give you the right to access a third party's debt resolution file. If Mr. Reed was paying someone else's settlement, that is his business." "Settlement?" I asked, latching onto the word. "So it is a debt settlement?" She hesitated, realizing she had slipped. "We handle mediation for outstanding liabilities. That is all I can say. If you want to stop the payments, you can do that through your bank. But I can't discuss the case file with you." I walked back to the car, my hands shaking. It wasn't medical debt. It wasn't a secret mortgage. Harold Reed, a man who paid his electric bill the day it arrived and saved aluminum foil to reuse, had been pouring half his pension into a debt resolution firm for someone else. And I knew, with a sick, heavy certainty, whose debt it was. I met Talia Vance 2 days later at a cafe on the edge of Briar Glen. It was a neutral ground, away from the prying eyes of the neighbors and the suffocating atmosphere of my father's house. Talia was smaller than I remembered, a bird-like woman with gray curls and nervous hands. She was drinking a cup of herbal tea, wrapping both hands around the mug as if for warmth. "Leah," she said when I sat down, "you look so much like him, around the eyes. Thank you for meeting me." "Talia," I said, "I know this is awkward." "It is not awkward," she said, shaking her head. "It is wrong. What she is doing is wrong." She took a sip of tea, steadying herself. "Tell me about the call," I said. Talia set the mug down. "It was about 6 weeks before Harold passed." She said, "I was surprised to hear from Camille. I haven't spoken to her since the company picnic 5 years ago. She was frantic, fast-talking. You know how she gets?" I nodded. I knew. The manic charm. The bulldozer disguised as a greeting. "She told me that Harold was losing his memory," Talia said. "She said he had promised her the house years ago as compensation for all her help, but he had forgotten to write it down. She said she needed to clean up the paperwork before he got worse. And she asked you to sign an affidavit?" "She sent me a draft," Talia said. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She slid it across the table. I unfolded it. It was an email printout. Subject: Statement for Notary. From Camille, readgmail.com to tvance55, yahoo.com, Talia. Here's the language we discussed. Just sign it and get it notarized. I will handle the rest. It is just to make sure Dad's wishes are honored without the lawyers taking a cut. The attachment was a pre-written statement claiming that Talia, in her capacity as Harold's assistant, had witnessed him verbally gifting the Briar Glen property to Camille Reed in 2018. I looked up at Talia. "Did he? Did he ever say that?" "Never," Talia said firmly. "Harold was proud of that house. He always said, 'When I go, the girls can sell it and split the money.' He never promised it to one of you. That is why I refused to sign." "What did she do when you refused?" "She called me back," Talia said. "She was angry. She said I was remembering it wrong. She said, 'Talia, you don't want to be the reason the state takes the house, do you?' It felt like a threat. Leah, like she was blaming me for something that hadn't even happened yet. "Did you talk to Dad about it?" I asked. "I did," Talia said softly. "I called him a few days later. I didn't want to upset him, but I asked him if he was making changes to the estate." "What did he say?" "He got quiet," Talia said, "very quiet. Then he said, 'She wants a loan. Talia, it is always a loan, but this time she wants me to sign something just to simplify the paperwork. I don't want to sign it.'" Simplify the paperwork. That was Camille's language. "Did he say what the loan was for?" I asked. "No," Talia said, "but he sounded scared." "Leah, not of the money. He sounded scared of her. He said, 'If I don't help her, she says she will lose everything. But if I do help her, I am afraid I am digging a hole I can't get out of.'" I reached across the table and took Talia's hand. "Thank you," I said. "You have no idea how important this is." Talia squeezed back, her eyes wet. He was a good man. "Leah, don't let her ruin his name." I drove back to the house with the email tucked into my purse. I felt a grim sense of validation. Camille hadn't just been visiting the house. She had been running a campaign of pressure and intimidation against a 72-year-old man who just wanted to watch baseball and tend his garden. But the validation didn't last long. When I got inside and checked my email, there was a notification from Dana. "Urgent. New motion filed." I opened the attachment on my phone, standing in the hallway in my coat. Petitioner's motion to compel return of property and request for sanctions. The petitioner, Camille Reed, asserts that the respondent, Leah Reed, is currently in possession of numerous items belonging to the estate, which she has failed to inventory or surrender. These items include 1 Apple MacBook Pro laptop, 1 diamond solitaire necklace, approximately 0.5 carats, 1 Honda Civic, title number ending in 459. I stared at the screen, my mouth falling open. The MacBook was mine. I bought it 3 years ago for work. The necklace was my college graduation gift from Mom and Dad. The Honda Civic was my car. She was listing my own property as stolen estate assets. I called Dana immediately. She picked up on the first ring. "Did you read it?" Dana asked. "She is insane," I said, my voice rising. "That is my laptop. That is my car. The title is in my name. She knows that," Dana said calmly. "Or she suspects it. But by listing them as estate property, she forces you to prove ownership. She forces us to dig up receipts from 3 years ago. She forces you to find the title and the bill of sale." "Why?" I asked. "Why would she do this?" "It is easily disproven. Because it wastes your time," Dana said, "and it wastes your money. Every hour I spend responding to this motion is an hour I bill you for. She is trying to bleed you dry. Leah, she wants you to panic. She wants you to look at the legal fees and decide the house isn't worth it. It is about dominance," I said, leaning against the wall. "Exactly," Dana said. "She is humiliating you. She is telling the court. Look, my sister is a thief who steals from her dead father. It puts you on the defensive." I looked around the hallway. I felt the walls closing in. Camille was everywhere. She was in the empty spaces in the china cabinet. She was in the bank statements. Now she was coming for my own car. "We need to fight back," I said. "We are," Dana said. "We are going to document everything. I want you to take photos of every serial number on your electronics. Find the receipt for the necklace. Find your car title. We are going to bury her in paper." "But Leah?" "Yeah?" "I filed the subpoena for the phone records today." Dana said. "The phone records?" "We found a second line," Dana said, "on the carrier bill. Harold had his primary cell, the one you knew about, but there was a second line added to the family plan 8 months ago. A burner phone, maybe, or a spare. I didn't know he had a second phone. Neither did I," Dana said, "but the usage logs show hundreds of minutes a month, mostly to one number." "Camille, we will know when the carrier responds," Dana said, "but if he was talking to her on a secret line, it suggests she was isolating him. She didn't want you to see the call logs on the main bill if you ever checked them." I hung up and walked into the living room. I felt a sudden, frantic need to search the house again. If there was a second phone, where was it? Camille had emptied the file cabinet. She had looted the safe, but maybe she had missed something. I started in the study. I pulled the drawers out of the desk completely, stacking them on the floor. I shone a flashlight into the cavity of the desk. Nothing. I checked the bookshelves, pulling down every paperback. Nothing. I went to the closet in the guest room. Nothing. I went back to the study. I sat on the floor, surrounded by the debris of my search. I looked at the empty metal shell of the desk. It was an old steel tanker desk, heavy and indestructible. Dad had bought it at a surplus auction in the 90s. I lay on my back and looked up at the underside of the central drawer casing. There was something there, a small, rectangular shape, taped to the metal with silver duct tape. I reached up, my fingernails scraping against the tape. It was stuck fast, old and dry. I peeled it away carefully. An envelope fell onto my chest. It was a standard white business envelope, yellowed at the edges. On the front, in Dad's handwriting, shaky, pressed hard into the paper, were 3 words: "Give to Dana." My breath hitched. He didn't say, "Give to Leah." He said, "Give to Dana." He knew. He knew he was dying. Or he knew he was in danger. And he knew I would hire Dana Wilcox. I sat up and tore the envelope open. Inside was a single brass key. It was small, the kind used for a padlock or a safe deposit box. There was a note wrapped around the key. "Leah, if you are reading this, the fighting has started. I am sorry. I tried to fix it myself, but I ran out of time. Take this key to the First National Branch on Main, Box 402. Do not let your sister see what is inside until you are in front of a judge. Love, Dad." I stared at the note. The handwriting was erratic, the letters slanting sharply to the right. He had written this in a hurry, or in a panic. I didn't wait. It was 2 p.m. The bank was open for another 3 hours. I drove to the bank, the key burning a hole in my pocket. I felt like I was carrying a grenade. At the bank, I showed my executor paperwork and the death certificate. The manager, a young man who looked like he had just started shaving, led me into the vault. The air was cool and smelled of steel and money. He used his master key, and I inserted the brass key. They turned in unison. He pulled the long metal box out and carried it to a private viewing room. He set it on the table and left, closing the door behind him. I lifted the lid. The box was mostly empty. No gold bars, no stacks of cash. Just a thick, sealed packet, a large manila envelope, heavily taped, with a label printed from a computer and glued to the front. Court list. Read if contested. And underneath, a smaller, handwritten letter. I picked up the letter first. My hands were trembling so badly the paper rattled. My dearest Leah, if you have found this, it means Camille didn't get to the safe deposit box. I never told her about this one. I opened it 6 months ago when the demands started getting worse. I need you to understand that I love your sister, but the Camille you grew up with is gone. She is desperate. Leah, she has made mistakes, business mistakes, personal mistakes, and she believes that I am the only way out of them. She believes that my money is her money. She believes that love is proved by how much you give. She has drained me. I have paid her debts. I have covered her loans. I have paid the people she owes money to. But it is never enough. She wants the house. She wants the accounts. She wants everything because she is terrified of her own life collapsing. I cannot let her take what little I have left to leave to you. You were the one who never asked for anything. You were the one who just wanted to be my daughter, not my banker. The packet in this box is for the court. I hope you never have to use it. I hope she accepts the will and walks away. But I know she won't. She will try to turn my grief into a transaction. She will try to destroy your name to get what she thinks she is owed. If she sues you, if she lies about me, if she tries to take the house, give the packet to the judge. Do not open it yourself. Let the court read it. I am sorry I was too weak to stop her while I was alive. I hope this helps you stop her now. Love, Dad. I put the letter down. Tears were streaming down my face, hot and fast. I didn't wipe them away. He hadn't been confused. He hadn't been manipulated. He had been a hostage. He had spent his final months hiding assets from his own daughter, building a failsafe because he knew she would come for his bones. I picked up the sealed packet. It was heavy, thick, court list. I didn't open it. The note said, "Do not open it yourself." I put everything back in the box. The letter, the packet. I locked it. I put the key in my bra, against my skin. I drove straight to Dana's office. I didn't call ahead. I walked past the receptionist and into her office. Dana looked up, startled. "Leah? What is it?" I pulled the key out. I found this taped under his desk. I told her everything. The note, the safe deposit box, the letter, the sealed packet. Dana listened, her face unreadable. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and took a long, slow breath. "He prepared an exhibit," she said softly. "He testified from the grave." "Can we use it?" I asked. Dana stood up. "We have to authenticate it. We have to subpoena the bank access logs to prove he was the only one who accessed that box. We have to get handwriting analysis on the letter to prove he wrote it. But Leah?" "Yes?" "This changes the entire strategy. We aren't defending anymore." "What do you mean?" "Up until now, we have been trying to prove that you aren't a thief." Dana said, "We have been reactive. But if this packet contains what I think it contains, an accounting of what he already gave her, or proof of her extortion, then we are going on the offensive. We aren't just asking the judge to deny her petition. We are going to ask the judge to read this into the record, but we don't know what's in it." I said, "It could be anything. It is titled Court List." Dana said, "He wanted it read. He wanted the bailiff to read it. He wanted it to be public." She looked at me, her eyes fierce. "This is his closing argument, Leah. He wrote it for you." I left the office feeling a strange, vibrating energy. It wasn't happiness. It was the feeling of a weapon being loaded. I went back to the house. I made tea. I sat in the living room, looking at the empty space where the Ladro figurines used to be. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. Mom. I stared at it. Janice Reed. My mother. She had divorced Dad 20 years ago and moved to Florida. She was a woman who disliked unpleasantness, which meant she disliked anything that required her to take a stand. She had been silent since the funeral, except for a generic card. I picked up. "Hello, Mom, Leah," she said. Her voice was thin, reedy. "I just got off the phone with Camille." I tightened my grip on the phone. "Of course you did. She is very upset." "Leah," my mother said, "she says you are refusing to settle. She says you are dragging the family through court. I am not the one who sued." "Mom, she sued me. She sued me 3 days after the funeral. She is hurting." "Leah," my mother cried. "She is grieving. She feels like you are shutting her out. She says you changed the locks." "I changed the locks because she stole things from the house." "Oh, stop it," my mother snapped. "Stole things. It is her father's house, too. She probably just wanted a keepsake. Why do you always have to be so dramatic?" I felt the old dynamic snap into place like a bear trap. The responsible one versus the favorite, no matter what Camille did. Crash a car, lose a job, sue her sister. She was just hurting. If I reacted, I was dramatic. She is claiming I stole my own car. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "She is trying to ruin me. She just wants what is fair." My mother said, "She told me that Harold promised her the house. She said you manipulated him into changing his mind." "That is a lie." "Is it?" my mother asked. "You were always so focused on the money. Leah, you moved to Boston for that big job. You left us behind. Camille stayed." I laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. "Camille stayed because she needed him to pay her bills." "That is cruel," my mother said. "Why are you doing this to your sister? Why can't you just give her the house and be done with it?" "It is just a building." "It is not just a building," I said. "It is the truth. I am very disappointed in you." "Leah," my mother said. I expected better. I hung up. I sat in the silence of the living room. The words hung in the air. Disappointed, cruel. For a moment, I wanted to call her back. I wanted to apologize. I wanted to fix it, to be the good daughter who made the problem go away. That was my role. That was who I was supposed to be. But then I thought about the letter in the safe deposit box. You were the one who never asked for anything. Dad had seen me. He had really seen me. And he had seen Camille too. I wasn't going to fix this for Mom. I wasn't going to fix it for Evan. And I certainly wasn't going to fix it for Camille. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the dark street. The court list. Camille wanted a spectacle. She wanted a public hearing where she could cry and point fingers and demand her rights. She wanted to use the court as a stage for her martyrdom. Fine. I would give her exactly what she wanted. I would give her a spectacle. I texted Dana. "File the motion to admit the packet. Let's go to trial." The text sent with a small whoosh. I wasn't pleading for fairness anymore. I was done explaining myself. Harold Reed had left a landmine in a safe deposit box, and I was going to make sure Camille stepped right on it. The motion to admit the sealed packet from the safe deposit box was filed on a Tuesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, Grant Pellman had filed an objection so thick it made a thud when Dana dropped it onto the conference table. "He is panicked," Dana said, unbuttoning her blazer and sitting down. She looked tired, but her eyes were bright, fueled by the specific adrenaline of a lawyer who smells blood. "He hasn't even seen what is inside." I said. I was sitting by the window, watching the rain streak the glass. The weather in Briar Glen seemed to have permanently settled into a gray, weeping gloom. "That is why he is panicked," Dana said. She tapped the objection. "Listen to this argument. He claims the packet is inadmissible hearsay. He claims it is a distinct possibility that the decedent was coerced into creating this document by the respondent, that's you, during a period of cognitive decline." I laughed, but there was no humor in it, so I coerced him into writing a secret list, locked it in a box he never told me about, and then waited for him to die so I could surprise myself with it? Logic is not the point here. Leah, doubt is the point. Pellman is trying to convince Judge Holloway that the packet is fruit of the poisonous tree. He is arguing that because Harold was confused, their narrative, not ours, anything he wrote in the final months is unreliable. What did the judge say? He set a hearing for authentication. Dana said, but here's the interesting part. When Pellman started shouting about fabrication, Judge Holloway got quiet. You know that look he gets? Like he is looking over the top of his spectacles? I nodded. He asked Pellman, if your client is so certain of the decedent's wishes, Mr. Pellman, why are you so afraid of his written words? It was a small victory, but in a war of attrition, I took what I could get. The packet remained sealed, sitting in the court's evidence vault like an unexploded bomb. We had to prove Harold wrote it, and we had to prove he wrote it of his own free will. But while the legal battle over the packet simmered, the discovery process, the exchange of evidence that Dana had fought for, began to bear fruit, and the fruit was rotten. It started with Mrs. Ormond. My neighbor had been watching the house since the funeral. She had taken it upon herself to be the neighborhood watch commander for the Reed estate. She called me on a Thursday evening, her voice trembling with excitement. Leah, dear, she said, I found the USB drive. The USB drive? The backup for my doorbell camera, she said. You asked me to check if I had any footage from before your father passed. My grandson helped me download it. I drove over immediately. Mrs. Ormond's house smelled of lavender and cat litter. We sat at her kitchen table while her teenage grandson, a boy named Kyle, who communicated mostly in shrugs, plugged the drive into a laptop. Here, Kyle said, pointing to a timestamp. The video was grainy, shot in the monochrome green of night vision. The angle captured the edge of Mrs. Ormond's driveway and a clear view of my father's front porch. The timestamp read, October 24th, 2:14 in the morning, 2 weeks before he died. A car pulled up to the curb. It was a dark sedan. I knew the shape of the headlights. It was Camille's Mercedes. The driver's door opened. Camille stepped out. She wasn't wearing her usual polished business attire. She was wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. She looked around the street, checking the dark windows of the neighboring houses. She walked up the driveway. She didn't ring the bell. She didn't knock. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a key, and unlocked the front door. She was inside for 40 minutes. When she came out, she was carrying something, a box, a small, square box, tucked under her arm. I froze the video. Is that? Mrs. Ormond squinted. It looks like the lockbox. I whispered. The video continued. Camille got back in her car and drove away. No headlights until she was halfway down the block. I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach. Camille had sworn in her initial affidavit, under penalty of perjury, that she had not accessed the decedent's residence in the 6 months prior to his death. She had claimed she had no key. She had claimed she was estranged from the physical property until the funeral. She had lied to the court, and she had stolen the lockbox while our father was sleeping inside. I took the USB drive to Dana the next morning. This is it, Dana said, watching the footage for the third time. This is perjury. Can we have her arrested? I asked. I wanted handcuffs. I wanted to see her perfect facade crack in a police station. Dana shook her head. Not yet. If we file for sanctions now, she will come up with an excuse. She will say he asked her to come. She will say it was an emergency. We hold this. We wait until she takes the stand. We let her repeat the lie under oath one more time. And then we play the movie. It was ruthless. It was exactly what I needed. But the hits kept coming. 2 days later, the subpoena results from the phone carrier arrived. We had suspected a second line. We hadn't realized what it was used for. Dana laid the spreadsheet out on the desk. It was a log of calls for a number registered to Harold Reed, added to his plan 8 months ago. Look at the pattern, Dana said, tracing a line with her finger. The calls were almost exclusively to one number, Camille's cell. But look at the times, Dana said. 11:30 at night, midnight, 1 in the morning. He was talking to her in the middle of the night. I said, or she was calling him. Dana corrected. Look at the duration. 12 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, and then there was a number I didn't recognize, a landline. On November 4th, 3 days before the stroke, Harold's second phone made a call to this number. It lasted 4 minutes. I Googled the number. Dana said. She turned her monitor around. Law offices of Grant Pellman. I stared at the screen. My father called Camille's lawyer? 3 days before he died. Dana said, and look at the next entry. 5 minutes later. He called Camille. That call lasted 10 seconds. He called Pellman. I said, piecing it together. Maybe he was trying to find out what Camille was planning. Maybe she threatened him with legal action, and he called her bluff. Or, Dana said grimly, maybe she was already setting up the lawsuit. Maybe she had Pellman call him to pressure him, and he called Pellman back to beg him to stop. It made me sick. My father, a man who believed in handshakes and looking people in the eye, being harassed by a shark like Pellman on a burner phone, but the worst part wasn't the anger. It was the guilt. I sat in my car after the meeting with Dana, staring at the gray dashboard. The evidence was piling up. Camille was a predator, but the flip side of that coin was that I had been an absentee protector. I had moved to Boston. I had built a life of dinner parties and gallery openings and promotion tracks. I visited twice a month. Sure, I called on Sundays, but I hadn't been there at midnight when the phone rang. I hadn't been there when she came into the house with a key I didn't know she had. Camille's narrative, that I was the unstable younger daughter who abandoned the family, was a lie, but it was wrapped around a kernel of truth that hurt. I was gone. I was busy, and Camille was using that. In her latest filing, Pellman had included a line that haunted me. The respondent's lack of physical presence in the decedent's life rendered her oblivious to his daily struggles and his evolving wishes. She was weaponizing my success against me. She was making my independence look like negligence. I drove to the cemetery. It was raining. A slow, cold drizzle. I stood in front of the fresh mound of earth where the headstone hadn't been placed yet. I am sorry, Dad. I whispered, I am so sorry I wasn't there. I stood there until my coat was soaked through, trying to hold the grief without letting it turn into the shame Camille wanted me to feel. I had to separate the two. Grief was mine. Shame was a weapon she handed me, and I had to refuse to pick it up. When I got back to town, my phone buzzed. It was Evan. Can we talk? I'm at the Starbucks on Main. I hesitated. I hadn't spoken to him since he told me about Camille's settlement offer, but I needed to know where he stood. He was sitting at a small table in the corner, nursing a latte. He looked uncomfortable. When he saw me, he stood up, knocking his knee against the table leg. Leah, he said, you look tired. I am tired. Evan, I am fighting a war. Sit down, please, he said. I sat. I didn't take off my coat. I owe you an apology, Evan said. He looked down at his cup. I was trying to be the peacemaker. I thought if I could just get you two to talk, it would go away. But I realized I was just asking you to surrender. I looked at him. His face was open, earnest. He was a good man, in a soft, architectural sort of way. He wanted structure. He wanted things to make sense. She called me again. Evan said. My spine stiffened. When? Yesterday. She wanted to know if I could talk some sense into you before the deposition. She said things, Leah, nasty things. She said you were having a breakdown. She said you were spending all the estate money on a fancy lawyer because you were vindictive. And what did you say? I asked. I told her to stop calling me. Evan said, I told her that I know you. I know you aren't vindictive. I told her you are the most rational person I know. I felt a small knot in my chest loosen. Thank you. I want to help. Evan said, I can testify. Leah, I can tell the judge that she contacted me. I can tell him that she tried to use me to manipulate you. I looked at him. I saw the desire to be a hero in his eyes. He wanted to fix the mistake he had made. No, I said. He blinked. What? Why? Because I won't let you be a prop. I said, if you testify, Pellman will cross-examine you. He will ask about our relationship. He will ask about our finances. He will try to paint you as a biased boyfriend who is just backing up his girlfriend. I don't care. Evan said, I do. I said, "This is my fight." Evan, I appreciate that you see her now. I really do. That means a lot, but I can't let my personal life become part of the court record. Camille would love that. She would love to make this about you and me instead of her and Dad. Evan looked disappointed, but he nodded. Okay, just let me know if you change your mind. I walked out of the coffee shop alone. I had set a boundary. It was lonely, but it felt clean. The next piece of the puzzle came from Talia. She emailed me late one night. Subject: found the thread. Leah. I went through my old deleted items. I found the full exchange where she sent the draft. Look at the second email. I opened the attachment. From Camille, readgmail.com to tvance55yahoo.com. Date, September 15th. Talia, I understand your hesitation, but you are remembering it wrong. Dad was very clear. He told us both at the barbecue. If you don't sign this, it's going to look like you are covering for Leah. I'm just trying to protect Dad's legacy. Do the right thing. I have already drafted the notary block. It will take 5 minutes. Covering for Leah. She was planting the seed even then. She was trying to gaslight Talia into believing that I was the villain. Months before Dad died, she wasn't just manufacturing a claim to the house. She was manufacturing a moral universe where she was the savior and I was the threat. I forwarded it to Dana. Pattern of conduct. I typed, "She pressures witnesses to adopt her reality." Dana replied instantly, "It's admissible. It goes to credibility. Good work." Then came the inventory. The court had ordered both of us to submit a preliminary inventory of assets we believed belonged to the estate. My list was boring. The house, the bank accounts, the car, the furniture. Camille's list arrived on a Friday. I read it standing in my kitchen, and I actually laughed out loud. It was the laughter of disbelief. Item 4. Vintage Omega watch. Status: in possession of petitioner. Reason: inter vivos gift from decedent. November 1st. Item 5. Pearl necklace strand. Status: in possession of petitioner. Reason: inter vivos gift from decedent. October 20th. Item 6. Lockbox. Contents: deeds and personal papers. Status: in possession of petitioner. Reason: safekeeping request by decedent. She had listed the stolen items. She had admitted she had them. I called Dana. She did it. I said, "She admitted she has the watch and the pearls. She had to." Dana said. Her voice was sharp. She knew we would notice they were missing from the house. If she didn't list them, and we proved she took them, like with the video, it would be theft. By listing them as gifts, she tries to legitimize the possession. But she claims they were gifts. I said, she claims he gave them to her 2 weeks before he died, which contradicts her affidavit that she wasn't there. Dana said, "Gotcha," I whispered. "Exactly." Dana said, "She is trapped. If she says he gave them to her, she admits she was at the house. If she admits she was at the house, her sworn statement is a lie. If she says she wasn't at the house, then how did she get the items? Did they float to her?" She is spinning. I said, "She is trying to cover the theft with a lie, and the lie contradicts the other lie. And there is more." Dana said, "The investigator finished running the background on Northwick Mediation Services." I held my breath. This was the big one. The money. "Tell me." "Northwick is a shell," Dana said. "It is a collection agency that buys bad debt from commercial lenders. But they don't just collect. They structure settlements to avoid bankruptcy filings." "Who is the debtor?" I asked. "We found a UCC filing." Dana said, "A Uniform Commercial Code lien. It was filed against an entity called KCR Ventures LLC. KCR," I said. "Camille. Her middle name is Rose. Camille Rose Reed." "Exactly. KCR. Ventures was a boutique consulting firm she started 4 years ago. Remember that?" I remembered. She had posted about it constantly on Facebook. CEO life. Boss babe. Then, suddenly, she stopped posting about it. She told the family she had sold the business to move on to other opportunities. She didn't sell it. Dana said, "It imploded." She defaulted on a commercial lease and a business line of credit. The total liability was over $80,000. $80,000. And here is the kicker, Dana said. Harold co-signed the line of credit. I closed my eyes. He didn't tell you? Dana asked. No, he never said a word. The bank came after him. Dana said. When the business folded, Camille stopped paying. The bank threatened to put a lien on his house, on this house. Leah. So he entered into a settlement agreement with Northwick to pay off her debt to save his home. That explains the payments. I said, the $2,500 a month. He was paying for her failure. Dana said, he was bleeding out his pension to keep a roof over his head because she defaulted. And she has the nerve to sue me for dissipating assets, I said, my voice shaking. She drained him dry while he was alive, and now she is trying to take the crumbs he left behind. It is worse than that. Leah, if Harold was paying her debt, that creates a claim against her share of the estate. She owes the estate that money back. She knows that. I said, that is why she wants everything. She needs the assets to cover the hole she dug. She isn't trying to get rich. She is trying to bury the evidence. I hung up. I sat in my car in the driveway. The rain had stopped, leaving the world slick and black. I thought about my father. I thought about him sitting in that kitchen, looking at his bank book, seeing the numbers go down every month. I thought about the stress Dr. Aris had written about. Ongoing family conflict regarding finances. It wasn't a conflict. It was a siege. He hadn't told me because he was ashamed. He hadn't told me because he didn't want me to hate her. Even as she was drowning him, he was protecting her reputation. He was trying to fix it quietly, so the family wouldn't break, and in the end, the stress had killed him. I didn't scream. I didn't hit the steering wheel. I just leaned my head back against the seat and let the tears come. They were hot and silent. He died trying to save her from herself. I whispered to the empty car, and she stepped over his body to sue me. The breakdown was quiet, implosive. It was the moment the last shred of sisterly doubt evaporated. I wasn't fighting my sister anymore. I was fighting a stranger who had consumed my sister and killed my father. 2 days later, we were back in court. Judge Holloway looked different this time. He wasn't the tired bureaucrat anymore. He was alert. He had read the filings. He had seen the contradictions. We sat at the table. Camille was there, looking slightly less perfect. Her makeup was a little heavier. She wouldn't look at me. Mr. Pellman, the judge said, his voice echoing in the high-ceilinged room. I have reviewed the petitioner's inventory, and I have reviewed the respondent's submission regarding the security footage. Pellman stood up, buttoning his jacket. Your Honor, there is a simple explanation. I am sure there is. The judge interrupted, and I'm going to hear it, but not today. He looked at Camille. She stared straight ahead, her jaw set. I am scheduling a full evidentiary hearing for next Thursday. The judge said, we are going to resolve the issue of the inventory. We are going to resolve the admissibility of the decedent's sealed packet, and we are going to resolve the allegations of perjury. He leaned forward. And let me be clear to both parties. This is family court, but fraud is a criminal matter. If I find that either party has submitted false affidavits or concealed assets, I will not hesitate to refer the matter to the district attorney's office. Do you understand? Understood. Your Honor, Dana said. Pellman hesitated, then nodded. Understood. The gavel banged. As we walked out, Camille stopped. She turned to me. Her eyes were rimmed with red, but the anger in them was nuclear. You think you're smart. Leah, she hissed. You think you can just come back here and take over? You don't know anything about what he wanted. I looked at her. I saw the fear behind the rage. I saw the woman who owed $80,000 and had run out of people to manipulate. I know exactly what he wanted. Camille, I said quietly, he wanted you to be safe, and you made him pay for it with his life. She recoiled, as if I had slapped her. We walked out into the cold air. The final battle was set. The judge had warned us about consequences, but I wasn't afraid of the consequences. I had the key, I had the list, and for the first time since I came home, I knew I was going to win. Not for the money, but for him. 3 days before the final evidentiary hearing, the settlement offer arrived. It didn't come with a phone call or a plea for reconciliation. It came as a PDF attachment to an email from Grant Pellman, marked with a red high-priority flag. Dana printed it out and slid it across the desk to me. She didn't say a word. She just watched my face. Offer of compromise and settlement. The document read, "The petitioner, Camille Reed, agrees to withdraw the motion for sanctions and the petition to remove executor. In exchange, the respondent, Leah Reed, agrees to 1. Immediately transfer the deed of the Briar Glen property to Camille Reed. 2. Waive all claims to the contents of the home. 3. Accept a one-time cash payment of $5,000 from the estate assets." I stared at the number. $5,000. She is buying me out, I said, my voice flat. She is offering me $5,000 for my father's house. She is framing it as mercy. Dana said, "Read the cover letter." I looked at the paragraph Pellman had written. Ms. Reed wishes to spare her sister the embarrassment of a public hearing and the financial ruin of potential sanctions. This offer is a gesture of goodwill to preserve family unity. Goodwill, I repeated. She steals the jewelry. She loots the bank accounts. She lies to the court. And now she is offering me $5,000 to go away quietly. It is a threat. Leah, Dana said. She is saying, "Take this crumb and leave, or I will destroy you in that courtroom." She knows we have the footage. She knows we have the bank records. This is a Hail Mary. She wants to stop us before we get to the evidence. I pushed the paper back across the mahogany table. "Tell her no," I said. Dana nodded. "I will draft the rejection. But you need to be prepared for the fallout. When a narcissist offers a truce and you reject it, they don't just get angry, they punish you." The punishment began 24 hours later. I was at the grocery store, buying microwave dinners because I didn't have the energy to cook. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was my cousin Sarah. Sarah and I had grown up together. We used to trade friendship bracelets and complain about our mothers. "Hey, Sarah?" I answered, balancing the phone against my shoulder. "I was just thinking about you. Are you guys still hosting Thanksgiving this year?" There was a long, awkward silence on the line. The kind of silence that has weight. "Leah," Sarah said finally. Her voice was tight. "That is actually why I'm calling." "Oh?" "Mom spoke to Aunt Janice this morning." Sarah said. My stomach dropped. Aunt Janice was my mother. "And?" I asked. "And, look, Leah, this is really uncomfortable," Sarah said. "But Aunt Janice told my mom that you are suing Camille. She said you are dragging the family name through the mud because you want to sell the house and keep the money." "That is not what is happening," I said, abandoning my cart in the frozen food aisle. "Camille sued me. Sarah, she is the one who took him to court. That is not what Aunt Janice says." Sarah said. "She says you are being vindictive. She says Camille is devastated." "Sarah," I said, my voice rising, "Camille stole from the estate. She has been lying for months." "Leah, stop," Sarah cut in. "I don't want to be in the middle of this, but Mom thinks it would be better if you didn't come to Thanksgiving this year. It is going to be too tense. We just want a peaceful holiday." I stood there, holding a box of frozen lasagna, feeling the blood drain from my face. "I am uninvited?" I asked. "I am sorry," Sarah said. "Maybe next year, when this is all over." She hung up. I stood in the aisle for a long time. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. People walked past me, focused on their lists, their normal lives. I felt a profound, aching isolation. Camille hadn't just taken the house. She had taken the family. She had spun a story so compelling that even my own mother was selling tickets to it. I left the cart and walked out of the store. I sat in my car and didn't start the engine. I realized then that winning the case wouldn't bring them back. The bridge wasn't just burned. It was detonated. The night before the hearing, Dana preps me in her office. The room was dim, lit only by the desk lamp and the glow of the city outside the window. "You need to be careful tomorrow," Dana said. She was pacing, her heels silent on the carpet. "Pellman is going to go after your character. He is going to paint you as the cold, absent career woman." "I know," I said. "Don't fight it," Dana said. She stopped and looked at me. This is important. Leah, if you try to pretend you were the perfect daughter who was there every Sunday, he will destroy you. He will pull up your travel records. He will pull up your work schedule. So what do I do? You own it, Dana said. You tell the truth. You say, yes, I lived in Boston. Yes, I was building my career. But my absence didn't mean I stopped loving my father. And it certainly didn't mean I lost my ability to read a bank statement. She leaned in. Honesty is your shield. Leah, Camille is going to perform. She is going to be the grieving saint. You need to be the person who is just trying to get the math right. Don't get angry. Don't get defensive. Just answer the questions. She opened a folder. And there is one more thing. She said, I found a bequest in the will that we missed. Or rather, that Camille is trying to challenge. What is it? Your father left $10,000 to the Briar Glen High School Scholarship Fund, Dana said. I smiled. A small, sad smile. He loved that school. He played baseball there. Camille is claiming you manipulated him into adding that, Dana said. Why would I do that? I asked. Why would I manipulate him to give money to a school? She claims it was your idea to deplete the estate, so there would be less for her, Dana said. She is arguing that a man in his condition wouldn't care about a scholarship. It was such a petty, ugly argument. It revealed exactly who Camille was. To her, generosity was just a leak in the hull. Every dollar that went to a student was a dollar stolen from her pocket. Let her argue that. I said, please, let the judge hear her say that charity is evidence of dementia. The morning of the hearing was cold and brittle. The sky was the color of a dirty nickel. We walked into the courthouse, Dana flanking me like a bodyguard. The courtroom was fuller than last time. Camille had brought an entourage. My mother wasn't there, thank God. But two of my aunts were sitting behind Camille, glaring at me. Camille was wearing a cream-colored suit that looked soft and expensive. She looked like a woman who had been wronged by the world, but was brave enough to show up anyway. Judge Holloway took the bench. He looked sharp, his eyes scanning the room with a predator's focus. We will begin with the witness testimony, Judge Holloway said. Dana called Evan first. I hadn't seen Evan since the coffee shop. He looked nervous. He adjusted his tie 3 times before sitting in the witness stand. State your name for the record. The bailiff said, Evan Holt. Dana stood up. Mr. Holt, what is your relationship to the respondent? Leah Reed? I am her boyfriend, Evan said. Or, I was. We are. Taking some space. Camille's lawyer, Pellman, smirked. Mr. Holt, Dana said, ignoring the smirk. Did the petitioner, Camille Reed, ever contact you regarding this litigation? Yes, Evan said. When? She called me at my office about 2 weeks after the funeral. Evan said, and again last week. What did she say? She told me that Leah was out of control, Evan said. He looked at Camille, then quickly looked away. She said that if I wanted to save Leah from herself, I should convince her to sign over the house. She said the lawsuit would bankrupt the estate, and there would be nothing left for anyone. Did she offer you anything? Dana asked. She said that if I helped end this, she would make sure Leah was taken care of, with a small cash payout. Evan said, she made it sound like I would be doing Leah a favor. And why are you testifying today? Dana asked. Because I realized I was being used, Evan said. He looked at me then, his eyes clear. I realized that Leah wasn't the one who was out of control. Leah has been trying to follow the rules. Camille was the one trying to go around them. Thank you. Mr. Holt. Pellman stood up for cross-examination. He didn't have much. He tried to suggest Evan was biased, that he was lying to win me back. But Evan was calm. He admitted he didn't know the details of the finances, just the content of the calls. His admission of ignorance made him credible. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He was just repeating what he heard. Next was Talia Vance. Talia sat in the chair, clutching her purse in her lap. She looked small, but her chin was set. Ms. Vance? Dana said. How long did you know Harold Reed? 22 years. Talia said. I was his assistant until he retired. We stayed friends. We had lunch once a month. Dana walked her through the email, the draft affidavit, the pressure. Why didn't you sign the statement Camille sent you? Dana asked. Because it wasn't true. Talia said simply. Harold never promised her that house. He told me, specifically, that he was worried she would try to take it. Objection. Pellman shouted. Hearsay! It goes to the decedent's state of mind. Your Honor, Dana countered. Overruled, the judge said. Continue. He was afraid of her, Talia said, her voice trembling slightly. He told me she was desperate for money. He said she was pressuring him to sign things he didn't understand. Pellman attacked her on cross. He asked if she had a grudge against Camille. He asked if she was being paid for her testimony. I am here because Harold was a good man, Talia said, her voice hardening, and because I won't let his daughter lie about him. When Talia stepped down, she squeezed my hand as she passed the table. Her fingers were cold. Then, it was Camille's turn. She glided to the stand. She took the oath with a solemn, practiced gravity. Pellman started gently. Camille, tell the court about your relationship with your father. We were best friends, Camille said. A single tear rolled down her cheek. It was perfect. After Mom left, I was the one who stayed. I cooked his meals. I took him to his appointments. Leah was gone. She was in Boston living her life. I was the one holding his hand. And did your father ever discuss his estate with you? Constantly, Camille said. He felt guilty. He knew how much I had sacrificed for him. He told me, Camille, the house is yours. I want you to have it. Leah has her career. She doesn't need it. Why didn't he write that down? Pellman asked. He thought he didn't need to. Camille said, he trusted us. He didn't think Leah would do this. She gestured to me, a gesture of profound disappointment. He begged me, Camille added, her voice catching, 2 days before he died. He grabbed my hand and said, promise me you will take everything. Promise me you won't let the lawyers divide us. It was too much. Even I could feel the air in the room shift. Take everything? Won't let the lawyers divide us? It sounded like a line from a soap opera, not something a stroke victim says. Judge Holloway shifted in his chair. He looked at Camille over his glasses. He said, take everything? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. Everything? Even his personal effects? Even his socks? Camille hesitated. He meant the assets. The house. The accounts. Dana stood up. Ms. Reed, Dana began, you claim your father wanted you to have everything because he was grateful for your financial stability, correct? Yes, Camille said. He knew I would take care of the legacy. And yet, Dana said, picking up a document, in the last 6 months of his life, your father transferred $15,000 to Northwick Mediation Services. Do you recognize that name? Camille blinked. No. You don't? Dana asked. Because Northwick Mediation Services is the collection agency handling the debt for KCR Ventures, LLC. That is your company, is it not? Camille shifted in her seat. That company is closed. It is closed because it defaulted on $80,000 of debt, Dana said. Debt that your father personally guaranteed. Camille's face went pale. I didn't know he was paying it. You didn't know? Dana asked. You were his best friend. You handled his bills. You cooked his meals. And you didn't notice $15,000 leaving his account to pay your debt? He must have wanted to help me. Camille stammered. He was generous. So which is it? Dana asked, her voice sharpening. Was he generous? Or were you unaware? Because 5 minutes ago, you said he wanted you to have the house because you were the responsible one. Now you are saying he was secretly bailing you out of bankruptcy. He wanted to help, Camille snapped. That is what fathers do. And did you ask him for help? Dana asked. No. Really? Dana pulled out another paper, because Dr. Aris's notes say that Harold reported ongoing family conflict regarding finances. If you didn't ask, who was he fighting with? Camille was breathing hard now. The calm facade was cracking. Red blotches appeared on her neck. He was confused. She spat. He didn't know what he was saying. Dana let the silence hang for a moment. Then she walked back to the table and picked up the USB drive. "Let's talk about confusion," Dana said. "You submitted a sworn affidavit stating you never entered the home in the 6 months prior to his death. Is that statement true?" "Yes," Camille said. Dana turned to the bailiff. "Your Honor, I would like to play Exhibit D, security footage from the neighbor's doorbell camera." The judge nodded. "Proceed." The screen in the courtroom flickered to life. The green night vision glow illuminated the room. We watched Camille's car pull up. We watched her walk to the door. We watched her unlock it. Camille stared at the screen, her mouth slightly open, and we watched her leave. 40 minutes later, with the box under her arm, Dana paused the video. "Ms. Reed," Dana said, "is that you?" Camille looked at the judge. He was staring at her with an expression of cold appraisal. I was checking on him," Camille whispered. "At 2:14 in the morning?" Dana asked. "I was worried. He wasn't answering his phone." "So you drove over, let yourself in with a key you swore you didn't have, stayed for 40 minutes, and left with a lockbox?" Dana asked. "If you were worried, why didn't you call an ambulance? Why didn't you turn on the lights?" I don't remember taking a box." Camille said. "You don't remember?" Dana asked. "But in your inventory filed last week, you listed a lockbox as a gift he gave you. So did he give it to you, or did you take it when you were checking on him at 2 a.m.?" Camille looked at Pellman. He was staring at his papers, refusing to meet her eyes. He knew she was drowning. I thought he wanted me to have it," Camille said, her voice small. "So you lied to the court," Dana said. "You lied about being there. You lied about the key. And you lied about how you got the property. I was protecting the estate," Camille shouted. Standing up, "Leah would have lost it all. She doesn't care about him. She only cares about the money. Sit down, Ms. Reed," Judge Holloway boomed. Camille sank back into the chair, shaking. She looked at me. There was no triumph in her eyes anymore, just pure, unadulterated hatred. "I have no further questions," Dana said. Dana returned to our table. I felt a strange ringing in my ears. It was done. We had stripped her down. The responsible sister, the martyr, the favorite. It was all gone. All that was left was a thief in a cream-colored suit. Judge Holloway cleared his throat. He looked at the clock on the wall. It was 4:30. "I have heard enough testimony regarding the credibility of the petitioner," the judge said. His voice was dry, devoid of patience. He turned to Dana. "Ms. Wilcox, you have filed a motion to admit a sealed packet found in the decedent's safe deposit box." "Yes, Your Honor," Dana said. "We have authenticated the handwriting and the access logs." "Mr. Pellman," the judge said, "do you still object?" Pellman stood up slowly. He looked at Camille, then at the judge. We maintain our objection as to relevance, Your Honor, but given the testimony today, we understand the court's discretion." He was folding. He knew he had lost control of his client and the facts. "Very well," Judge Holloway said. "The objection is overruled. The packet will be admitted into evidence as Exhibit G." He looked at the bailiff. "The court is in recess until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., the judge said. "At that time, we will unseal the packet and read the decedent's statement into the record." He banged the gavel. I stood up, my legs feeling like jelly. Camille didn't move. She sat in the witness stand, staring at the empty air. She looked like a statue that had been toppled but hadn't hit the ground yet. Dana packed up her briefcase. "Go home, Leah," she said quietly. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow. Harold gets the last word." I walked out to my car. The sky had darkened to a bruised purple. I sat in the driver's seat and looked at the courthouse. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. The court list would be read. Tomorrow. Whatever my father had hidden in that box would come out. I felt a sudden, fierce protectiveness. I hoped, for his sake, that it was enough. I hoped that whatever he had written would finally, once and for all, set him free from her. I started the car and drove into the night. The image of Camille's terrified face on the witness stand burned into my retinas. She had demanded a spectacle. She had demanded all possessions. And tomorrow, I had a feeling she was going to get exactly what she asked for. The final morning in court did not feel like the climax of a movie. There was no swelling orchestra, no sudden hush of a crowded gallery, and no dramatic weather beating against the windows. It was just a Tuesday. The courtroom smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. The air was heavy, not with electricity, but with the dull, suffocating weight of consequences. I sat at the respondent's table next to Dana. My hands were folded in my lap, fingers interlaced so tightly that the knuckles were white. I was trying not to shake. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was the vibration of a wire pulled too tight, waiting to snap. Camille sat 10 feet away. She had abandoned the soft creams and pastels of the previous days. Today, she wore a sharp black suit, severe and armored. She didn't look at me. She stared at the judge's empty chair with a look of hungry expectation. She believed, even now, that she could force the world to align with her will. Judge Holloway entered. We stood. We sat. The ritual was comforting in its indifference to our pain. "Mr. Pellman," the judge said, his voice scratching against the silence, "you may make your closing statement regarding the petition." Grant Pellman stood up. He looked tired. The swagger was gone, replaced by the grim determination of a man trying to salvage a commission. "Your Honor," he began. Despite the confusion regarding dates and specific items, the core of our petition remains unchanged. Camille Reed was the primary caregiver. She was the constant presence. The respondent, Leah Reed, has attempted to use her role as executor to disenfranchise the eldest daughter. He gestured toward Camille. "We are asking the court to grant the full relief requested in our initial filing. We ask for the immediate turnover of all possessions currently under the control of the estate. We ask that the house, the accounts, and the personal effects be awarded to Camille Reed. Consistent with the decedent's verbal promises, any control Leah Reed exerts over these assets is, in effect, theft by influence. We ask the court to correct this injustice." He sat down. Camille nodded. It was a sharp, definitive movement. All possessions. She was still demanding it. She wanted the house. She wanted the money. She wanted the victory of stripping me bare. The judge turned to Dana. "Ms. Wilcox?" Dana didn't stand up to argue. She simply placed a hand on the edge of the table. "Your Honor," Dana said, "we have no closing argument. We simply request that the court proceed with the reading of Exhibit G, the authenticated packet found in the decedent's safe deposit box, as instructed by the decedent himself." Judge Holloway looked at the large, sealed manila envelope sitting on his bench. It was marked with the yellow evidence sticker. "Very well," the judge said. He picked up a letter opener. The sound of the thick paper tearing was the loudest thing in the room. Rip! He pulled out a stack of documents. They were stapled together, backed in blue legal paper. He scanned the first page over his spectacles. His expression didn't change, but his eyebrows lifted slightly, just a fraction of an inch. He handed the stack to the bailiff, a burly man named Officer Miller, who had spent the last 3 days looking bored. "Read it into the record. Officer Miller," the judge instructed. "Start from the title." Officer Miller adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. "Inventory of assets, liabilities, and assignments for the estate of Harold Reed." He read, "Prepared October 1st, 2023, notarized by J.P. Morgan, clerk, October 1st, 1 month before he died. Preamble." The bailiff read, "I, Harold Reed, being of sound mind, compile this list to be read only in the event that my daughter, Camille Reed, contests the distribution of my estate. If this list is being read, it means that the peace I prayed for has failed, and a full accounting is required." I heard a small intake of breath from Camille's table. The bailiff continued. "Section 1, Inventory of Personal Property. Item 1, Vintage Omega Seamaster Watch. Value, $2,500. Note, removed from the primary residence by Camille Reed on October 24th, without executor permission. To to be deducted from her share. Item 2. Cultured pearl necklace strand. Value: $1,200. Note: removed from the primary residence by Camille Reed on October 24th, to be deducted from her share. Item 3. Sentry safe lockbox and contents. Value: NA. Note: removed from the primary residence by Camille Reed on October 24th. Warning: contents include deed to property, but do not convey ownership. The bailiff's voice was a monotone drone, which made the words hit harder. It wasn't an accusation. It was a ledger. Harold hadn't just known she took them. He had documented the theft in real time. He had seen her on the camera, or he had checked the hiding spots after she left. Camille was staring at the floor. Her hands were gripping the arms of her chair. Section 2. The bailiff read, Assignments of financial benefits. The room got quieter, if that was possible. Item 4. Cash transfer to Northwick Mediation Services. Date: May 12th. Amount: $2,500. Beneficiary: Camille Reed. Purpose: installment payment for debt, held by KCR Ventures, LLC. Status: advance on inheritance. Item 5. Cash transfer to Northwick Mediation Services. Date: June 12th. Amount: $2,500. Beneficiary: Camille Reed. Status: advance on inheritance. The bailiff read down the list. July, August, September, October. Every single payment I had found in the bank statement was listed here, not as a mystery, but as a specific assignment to Camille. Item 10. Lump sum settlement negotiation. Date: pending. Note: I have agreed to liquidate 40% of my pension cash value to satisfy the remaining judgment against Camille Reed to prevent a lien on the family home. Total liability. Assumption: $82,000. The number hung in the air. $82,000. The bailiff turned the page. Summary of Section 2. He read, The total sum of $82,000 has been paid or pledged by me to cover the business failures of my daughter, Camille. These payments were made under duress of her potential bankruptcy. If Camille demands a share of the estate, these sums shall be counted as her portion already received. I looked at Camille. Her face was gray. She had sued for all possessions. She had demanded a full accounting, and Dad was giving it to her. He was saying, You already took it. You took it while I was alive. The twist was elegant and devastating. Camille had treated the estate like a treasure chest she was waiting to open, but the list revealed that she had already looted the chest from the bottom up. The possessions she was fighting for were just the receipts of what she had already consumed. Section 3. The bailiff read, Beneficiary Leah Reed. I held my breath. Item 11. The family home at 14 Oak Street. Value: $320,000, subject to market. Assignment: to Leah Reed. Reason: Leah Reed has asked for nothing. Leah Reed has received no financial assistance since 2018. Leah Reed has not leveraged my affection for liquidity. It is my wish that she be granted the home to sell or keep, so that she may keep her own life separate and free from the debts of her sister. Keep her own life separate. Tears pricked my eyes. He wasn't just leaving me a house. He was building a wall. He was trying to ensure that Camille's black hole of need didn't swallow me too. Item 12. Personal effects. Assignment: to Leah Reed. All contents of the home not previously removed by Camille Reed, including family photos, furniture, and the Lodro collection, are to be the sole property of Leah Reed. The bailiff lowered the paper. Conclusion. He read, I love both my daughters, but fairness is not always equal. One daughter has drained the vessel, the other has refilled it. If Camille seeks justice in this court, let her find it in this accounting. She has received her inheritance. She spent it before I died. Signed, Harold Reed. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of a truth so heavy it crushed the air out of the room. Then, the explosion. It's a lie. Camille shot out of her chair. She knocked her water pitcher over. sending a splash of ice and water across the defense table. "It's a lie!" she screamed, her voice shredding the decorum of the court. "He didn't write that. She wrote it. Leah wrote it. She pointed a shaking finger at me. She manipulated him. She made him hate me. It is cruel. Do you hear me? It is cruel." "Ms. Reed," Judge Holloway barked. "Sit down." "No," Camille shrieked. She looked wild, her eyes wide and frantic. "I want the house. He promised me the house. I sacrificed everything for him. I am the one who was there." Officer Miller moved toward her, his hand resting on his belt. Pellman grabbed Camille's arm, trying to pull her down. "Camille, stop!" Pellman hissed. "You are making it worse. I don't care," Camille screamed, yanking her arm away. She looked at me, and for a second, I saw the raw, terrifying bottom of her soul. It was a place where she was always the victim, always owed, always starving. "You think you won?" she screamed at me. "You think you're better than me? You're nothing. You're just a cold bitch who left him to die." "Ms. Reed," the judge roared. "One more word and I will hold you in contempt. Bailiff, remove her if she does not seat herself immediately." Camille stood there, panting, her chest heaving. She looked around the room, seeing the shock on the faces of her own lawyer, the bailiff, the clerk. She saw the walls closing in. She slowly sank back into her chair. She put her face in her hands and began to sob. It wasn't the pretty, cinematic crying she had done on the stand. It was an ugly, gasping sound, the sound of a child who realizes the game is over and the board has been flipped. Judge Holloway waited until the sobbing subsided to a dull whimper. He adjusted his robe. He looked at the papers in front of him. The affidavit, the bank records, the list. "The court has heard the evidence," Judge Holloway said. His voice was cold steel. He looked at Camille. "Ms. Reed, you came to this court demanding equity. You claimed your father promised you his assets. You claimed your sister was a thief." He picked up the list. It appears the decedent anticipated your demands, and he answered them with a mathematical precision that this court rarely sees. He looked at me. "I find the testimony of the respondent, Leah Reed, to be credible. I find the testimony of the witness, Talia Vance, to be credible. I find the authenticated exhibit, the court list, to be a valid expression of the decedent's intent and a factual accounting of the estate's value." He turned back to Camille. "I find the petitioner's testimony to be unreliable and contradicted by objective evidence, specifically the security footage and the financial records." He opened a folder and began to write. Speaking as he wrote, "It is the judgment of this court that the last will and testament naming Leah Reed as sole executor is valid. The petition to remove her is denied." Camille let out a low moan. Furthermore, the judge continued, "The court adopts the accounting provided in the decedent's list, the payments made to Northwick Mediation Services on behalf of Camille Reed, totaling nearly $15,000, along with the liability assumption of $82,000, shall be considered an advancement of her inheritance." He looked up. "Since the value of these advancements exceeds 50% of the liquid assets of the estate, the court rules that Camille Reed has already received her full share. She is entitled to nothing further, nothing." The word hung there. Regarding the specific items listed as removed, the watch, the pearls, the lockbox, the petitioner is ordered to return these items to the executor within 24 hours. Failure to do so will result in a bench warrant for your arrest. He paused, looking at Pellman. And finally, regarding the conflicting affidavits, "Ms. Reed, you swore under oath that you did not enter the home. The video evidence proves you did. You swore you did not receive gifts, then listed them as gifts. This court takes perjury seriously. I am referring the record of this hearing, along with the video evidence and the financial documents, to the district attorney's office for review regarding potential charges of fraud and theft from an estate." Pellman closed his eyes. He knew this was coming. "The court is adjourned." The judge said. He banged the gavel. I sat there for a long moment. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel happy. I felt a profound sense of exhaustion, like I had just swum 10 miles through cold water. Dana touched my arm. "It's over." Leah, she said softly. He protected you. I looked at the judge's bench, where the bailiff was collecting the papers. Thank you, I whispered. I stood up. Camille was still sitting at the table, her head in her hands. Pellman was packing his briefcase with furious speed, already distancing himself from the wreck. I walked toward the aisle. I had to pass her table to leave. As I got close, Camille looked up. Her mascara was smeared, her eyes red and swollen. She looked 20 years older than she had an hour ago. Leah, she croaked. I stopped. I didn't turn fully toward her. I just paused. He loved me, she whispered. Her voice was desperate, clawing for one last scrap of validation. He did. He did love me. I looked at her. I looked at the sister who had turned my childhood into a minefield and my father's death into a lawsuit. Yes, I said quietly. He loved you enough to pay your debts, but he loved me enough to make sure you didn't take mine. I walked past her. I walked out of the courtroom, down the long marble hallway, and pushed open the heavy double doors. The air outside was biting cold. The gray sky had finally broken, and a weak, watery sunlight was filtering through the clouds. The wind hit my face, sharp and clean. I walked to my car. I stood there for a moment, looking back at the courthouse. It wasn't a victory. I had lost my father. I had lost my sister. I had lost the illusion of a happy family. But as I unlocked the car door, I felt something else. I felt the weight of the court list lifting off my shoulders. I felt the silence of the house waiting for me. Not empty, but safe. Camille had promised me that this wasn't over, but she was wrong. I looked at the key in my hand. It was finally, completely over. I got in the car, turned the key, and drove away from the courthouse, leaving the wreckage in the rearview mirror, heading toward a life that was finally, truly my own. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Family conflicts over inheritance are some of the most painful battles people ever fight, because they aren't just about money. They're about history, memory, and truth. I hope Leah's journey gave you some satisfaction, seeing that sometimes, even from beyond the grave, the truth really does come out. I'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening from today? Have you ever seen a family situation get this complicated? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode. We have so many more stories of justice, karma, and drama coming your way. Take care of yourselves. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is just living a good life. And keeping your receipts. See you in the next one.